I am so happy to see you guys.
Oh man, this is I'm thrilled.
Likewise.
It's I think it's been like what, like 10 years since we like ran into?
I
Maybe more.
remember the last time I saw you, it was you guys were at the Middle East and you're sitting in
Yeah.
a booth, and I walked in there and I saw you and I went and sat with you guys for a while. But I
Yeah.
don't remember when that was.
Yeah, it must
Yeah,
have
I don't know.
been like 2012 or something. I don't know. But yeah, I do remember it was at the Middle East and like I forget who we were there to even see.
I don't know,
It
man.
could have been later than that because didn't you move to LA around 2017?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was pretty close to before the time that you left.
Oh,
You might be
okay.
right actually, yeah. Because
Yeah.
the
So much of it, honestly,
yeah.
is like a blur. It's like, especially with the pandemic, I just feel like anything before the pandemic, I just get bits. Like, what happened in my life before
It's
this?
been absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so I got a lot of stuff to ask you guys, and I want to
Okay.
go all the way back to Miami.
Oh
Okay.
boy,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, I want to know all about, because you may have told me some of this years ago, but I don't remember it all. I want to know about how you guys grew up, how you got into music, and how you met. If you can tie that all together for me, and what section of Miami you grew up in, all of that.
Cool.
Yeah, you first.
Um, well, I grew up in Kendall and Coral Gables, not too far from University of Miami. And I kind of grew up with like just lots of family around, lots of family crap always happening as well, the drama. There was like it's a Cuban family, and everybody's in each other's business all the time. And there's Sunday dinners every week at my grandmother's house. And that was kind of maybe a formative thing. It was sort of like the beginning of like, well, these people are very uncool. I'm gonna go into my room over here, my grandfather's room, and like watch a bunch of TV or something, and like set myself up as the outsider from the get-go. And my grandmother had a piano that I used to like pick out melodies on. And when they caught me doing that and playing with her, they set me up in lessons. And
Nice.
I think it was just like hearing music on the radio on the way to school as my dad took us and cursed his way through traffic. That I was like, I think, I want to get a guitar, and then got a guitar out of like a catalog, a cheap acoustic thing.
Mhm.
Started learning some chords out of like guitar magazines. Um, you know, Oasis happened to me at 13, and then I was like, sweet, that's what I want to do.
Oasis. I thought for sure you were going to say the Beatles happened.
Oh, they happened so much earlier, that was like it was like the Beatles were happening to me while I was just discovering all kinds of art and like drawing and this and that and whatever else. And Oasis for me was the thing. This is when like, MTV peak, like
Mhm.
1995, 96. And I was like, it was summer vacation, so I'm staying up late every night. And I'm the only one up in the living room, and TV's on. I'm watching 120 minutes or whatever it is, or overnight, thing. And they came on, and just like in that moment, my life changed. And it was like, no, what I'm going to do is music, and I'm going to start a band tomorrow, and I'm going to learn how to play guitar, and I'm going to start writing songs. And that was basically the moment it happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar thing with like that 120 minutes thing where like I was like 13 and yeah, I'd been like I wasn't like super into Oasis, but I was like aware of him. Like my older cousin who kind of fed me music, he had told me about Oasis, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like his, and he was like maybe 5 years older, so his way of explaining to a child what they sounded like was like, imagine if like Pearl Jam, which like I knew, and the Beatles had a band, and which not accurate at all, but I was just like, whoa. But I remember it was like 120 minutes, and like Matt Pinfield like introduced that
Mm.
sing, you know what I mean? Which is just like the most like it's like an 8 minute thing, and like like the video is just ridiculous. And like they're out in like this open field with like the Marshall stacks and the
Yeah.
flying V and everything. I'm just like, I need to be in a band right now. This looks awesome.
You're
Uh
also from a Cuban family as well, right, Henry?
yeah, yeah. So how we met, so
Our
her
families like knew each other in Havana,
right.
Oh, okay.
like that. I mean, I've got a photo of
Yeah.
his great grandmother and my great grandmother walking his grandmother down the street
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
Havana.
It's pretty wild.
Havana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like when I was like about 13 or 14, so like I'd been playing guitar since I was like 11. Like my dad's brothers like played guitar. My mom's brother played guitar. You know, like I just, you know, the Beatles and my mom's like a huge like McCartney. I think fan is like underselling it. She's like obsessed. Like my earliest memory was like the vinyl covers for like Tug of War and Venus and Mars. You know, so it was just like in the air. And you know, I was just kind of like a weirdo kid who was just like in my room constantly. I'm just like dissecting Beatles songs and you know stuff. And I guess like this would have been like 96, I think. My grandparents were invited to her grandparents' like 40th like wedding anniversary or something like that.
Yeah, my parents like threw him a party,
Right.
and you know, it was big to do. His grandparents came over. I think your parents came over too,
Yeah.
and my grandfather. I was playing a bunch of Beatle tunes on piano. This is I eventually got from like the regular piano lessons to like my teacher was like, "You don't like any of this stuff. Why don't we just like learn stuff you want to learn?" And you can sing too. And I was like, cool, let's do that. So learn a bunch of Beatles tunes, and he always wanted me to play Obla Di Obla Da for him. So like I did again do that.
Yeah.
And then his grandparents were there when that
Right.
happened. And they kind of went back to him and was like, there's some other weirdo kid.
Yeah.
You know, loves the Beatles.
Yeah, they were like, you know, mi hijo, you need friends. So, you know, Garuquita's daughter, you know. So like they you know, like a couple weeks later, a week later, they took me over to Jen's grandmother's house where like Jen was, you know, and like I brought my guitar, like my amp, and you know, she had the piano, and we were just kind of like, so like, you like music, huh? Like, yeah, okay. But what do you know how to play? You know, and I think it was like Twist and Shout and
We
Don't Look
played-
Back in Anger. And I think when we played
And
Don't
Hey Jude.
and Hey Jude, right. Yeah, I was like, oh, I know those. I'm like, I know those too. And of course, instead of saying we should start a band, there was like an entire year that passed. We were just
Well,
kind
I'm
of,
already in a band. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
but
got
not
a
really.
band too.
yeah, which is like total nonsense.
So you
but-
guys were like around 13 or 14 when you met for the first time?
13, I think. 14,
Yeah, I think
something like that.
so.
It
Yeah,
was-
13, 14, like I turned 14 that year.
Yeah, it might have been like like just like 8th grade going into high school sort of era. Yeah, so
Yeah.
13, 14. something
Yeah,
like that.
so then we were like, yeah, like from then on, we were like on like AOL, like Instant Messenger, RIP. But you know, it was really fun because like we weren't even like talking with the intent of like starting a band. It was more like, well, I write songs, like check this out, you know.
Yeah.
And like,
I
well, I
think
write
we'd
songs.
send each other things.
Yeah. Like we couldn't send like audio because it was dial up at the time. But it's
Yeah.
like we'd send like lyrics and stuff like that, you know, and like we'd meet up and like, or maybe that was later.
I think that was a bit later. At some point, we decided like we should really like play music together.
Did you have other bands before you decided to form?
Not really.
You know, I had like a short-lived like 4-day band with like my sister, my brother, and like her friends. You know?
4
And
days.
yeah, it was literally something like that. And like I think we played once in the garage, and my sister couldn't quite sing, and I thought, well, I can sing. And I was
You
like,
certainly can
all of
sing.
Yeah. Actually, I always forget to like mention this, but this is like such a
They just wanted to borrow my "What's the Story" Morning Glory CD as I leave it.
yeah. But yeah, actually, it's weird that I always like forget to like mention this because it was like I did this for like a couple of years, but like my there was like a church down the street. Like back when I was a religious lad, and my grandmother like made sure to like take me to church. But I was like, I need to play with like people, and like the church, it was like the youth mass, right? And like they needed a guitar player, and you know, I kind of like oversold my skills, but like I think Lourdes like kind of knew, you know, she was like the director, and that on its own was like really great for me because it's like, oh, I get to like play with other people, and like, you know, it's just like every week,
Yeah,
you know, just playing stuff. So that was kind of like in the, you know.
Yeah, so I guess you had that, and then I have my piano lessons, and
Right,
then
right.
at some point, like we ended up just like it was like just come over, and like we spend like Saturday afternoons in my parents' garage, just showing each other things we'd written, and I think he had a 4-track we started using to record on that, and eventually we were like, we should write together,
Right.
you know.
How old were you when that started happening?
15?
15, 16.
Wow, you guys have been together
Yeah.
that long?
Long time.
Yeah,
Long
it's,
time. A couple decades at this point.
long-
You're like you're 30 now, right?
Thank you. No, he turned 40 this year.
Woo, hey,
Oh.
that's young. That's young. I have to ask you a question that's kind of not music related because I'm curious. Growing up in a Cuban family, you mentioned religion. Religion's a really big thing with Cubans, isn't it? Like,
It's like
it's like
it's
Catholicism.
very like similar. I mean, any like predominantly Catholic culture, I think, has a very similar upbringing. You know, I understand like Irish Catholics a lot because it's the same sort of similar thing. I mean, culturally there are differences, you know, but
Italian Catholics too, because that's how I was
Italian Catholics
raised.
as well.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it's probably more in common with that culturally. But there's just it's always here hovering, you know, and like I went to like Catholic school starting like middle school into high school, just because like I went to public school before then, but the public schools in Miami, as you kind of went through, were not always as good, and like or there were like perceptions that they weren't as good, and then there was sort of like there were, you know, a little bit of gang element you might have to deal with, you know, and I was just like going into it being like, well, I could take my chances with the gangs, or I could take my chances with the nuns. And I think I might have made a mistake. I don't know.
It's really funny. I think of that it's an older film. You guys might not remember it, Looking for Mr. Goodbar with Richard Gere, I'm sorry, comes back from Miami and he goes, Miami, tough hustle. You know, so I mean, you know, I know Miami has a reputation for being a tough place. I've been down there. I went down the Criteria Studios with a band and I was there for a week. And it wasn't a good neighborhood. It was scary, actually.
Yeah. And I don't want to like play that. Like, it's not like we didn't necessarily grow up in the most dangerous areas or anything like that. But like, you know, I couldn't, like, my grandmother took us to school, so we always had to lie and use her address because she was the one who like was around to take care of us before and after school and that sort of thing. Because my parents worked like long hours. Like I might not see them till like 8 o'clock or something, you know, in the evening. So we were really like raised by my grandparents the majority of the day or whatever. So like the schools in her neighborhood weren't quite as like, you know, desirable, whatever, you know. Yeah, you know, it's just, it's all right. I mean, look, it's like I got permanently scarred for a long time by going to Catholic school, so it's like, you know.
Oh, there's nothing worse. Believe me, I was raised as a Catholic. You don't have to tell me. It's a really difficult way to grow up.
Man, absolutely.
I was going to ask you guys about your musical influences because I totally remember we bonded on the Beatles the minute I met you guys. I knew you were Beatle fans, but I didn't realize that you were that huge on Oasis. Were there other bands that you were listening to in your teenage years?
Oh yeah. I think you know that first Third Eye Blind record we really like. I'll defend it on the grounds that it was recorded magnificently and you know, the singer's a douche, but whatever.
Songs there. I mean, you're talking like the 90s.
Yeah.
And like, and also we're like in Miami, which is not like New York. So there's not like the radio you might get up there.
Yeah. We were like the oddballs, you know.
Like it would, but also what I'm trying to say is like it's a lot of like commercial radio. You know what I mean? Like a lot of like, I think I probably got more from watching MTV late at night that I wouldn't come across otherwise. You know what I mean? Like I remember like leaving Miami to go to Boston, and like I was like, I don't know if I had stayed in Miami if I had known who the Strokes were as early as I did. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I remember that being a really like poignant thing. Yeah. It's like, oh, I don't think I would have had access to this so early on.
Yeah. But definitely U2 was like a huge for us.
Yeah. And that was like, honestly, that was my first ever concert, was going to see U2. And that was like, I was like 13, 14 around that time. And then I saw the Stones like a couple months after that.
Yeah.
And that
was
good
rock and roll upbringing.
Yeah, not bad. Definitely.
Yeah, Elton John, like your mom was like huge.
My mom was huge in Elton John, so I love Elton John. The Who, you know, she kind of showed me her like Tommy soundtrack. I went and went through all their records and stuff, you know. So like she had lots of Who, lots of Stones, Elton John. She wasn't actually a big Beatles fan, but she had like the Red and Blue albums, and those just kind of hooked me.
Oh yeah, greatest hits. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that stuff.
Yeah, this one's a sleeper for me personally, but like Fiona Apple, like
Right.
And that first
Oh.
record, I was just like, whoa, you can write big words and it still sounds awesome, you know. And you know, it was just that thing of like she just kind of didn't care, you know. It's like here's, you know, just it just felt like, you know, like it enlightened me to being like, you know, you're free to kind of write whatever, you know. Also, she's the badass, which
Yeah.
which is great.
You know, now I know you guys moved to Boston. You can help me with the years because I remember we spent many nights hanging out at the Abbey Lounge
Yeah.
in Inman Square, Cambridge, or
Yeah.
Somerville, depending on what side of the room you were on. You could be in
Right,
Cambridge
right,
or
yeah.
Somerville. What made you move to Boston? Well, when was that? Around 2003, I'm thinking.
We moved in 2001.
2001.
So-
We got there.
Yeah, and then we started
Really?
Aloud in 02, and
Right.
then I think when we were like kind of was like maybe like early 03 thereabouts.
Right.
So
It's
what made you choose Boston is my question.
It's like, I'm going to explain this and it's not going to make any sense to anybody because we were 19. And like, there's nothing logical about being 19. So, you know, all the bands I adored had come from England. And I was going to be like, I'm fucking leaving this place. I'm going to go live in London when I graduate from high school. And I'm going to go band there because this is where like all the bands I love are from. So like, this should be easy. And then I was like, how the fuck does one get to London and get to stay there legally and permanently? And I was like, this sounds like a lot of work, a lot of paperwork, maybe a little beyond me right now. So I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. What is London like? London adjacent?
New England, if
like,
you will.
What kind of has that feel? And I think kind of when I was thinking about that, like I think you had gotten like
I got like a letter from Berkeley. It was like a general like, you know, like you should apply to go to Berkeley.
I think they were like kind of getting him to do that. And I don't remember if I had kind of thought, oh, Boston might be a good place before that. I think I remember like New York feeling like it was too intimidating or something. You know, like I'm a kid from Miami, never gone anywhere, wants to go everywhere, but also like hasn't, so struggling with that like fear of all of that stuff, you know, but trying to push myself through it, you know. So I was like, well, maybe then we just like say we get in, we try and get into the school and say we're going to go to school, and then we stop going to school, and then we just live there and have a band, which is like basically what happened. Like it was like, okay, well, like they'll give us, our parents will give us less resistance if we say we're going to school.
To Berkeley.
Right,
to Berkeley. And not that was like an easy like sell either, because like leaving Miami was like, who fucking leaves Miami? Who leaves their family?
Yeah.
Who, you know, things like that. So that was its
Especially when you're from a tight knit like family, like Cuban families are very tight.
Yeah, my mom especially had like a really, really difficult time. And like her, you know, family didn't support her either in supporting me, you know. So I mean, everybody eventually got over it because I mean
they had to,
yeah.
So did you actually go to Berklee School of Music?
Briefly.
We went for a summer semester. We got there in like May of
2001.
2001. Yeah. And we went for a semester, and I was like, okay, I will like be open-minded about this for a second. And then I got the classes, and I was just like, this sucks. And so one teacher actually told me, like, you know, they pulled some joke at the beginning of the class, like, what does it take to graduate from Berkeley? Check clears. And I was like, well, fuck you. Like, I'm not gonna fucking like pour a bunch of money into this shit. And just like prolonging my like, you know, I'm the kind of person who's like rip the Band-Aid off in one go, take all 4 wisdom teeth out in one go. Like I don't waste my time like doing this in pieces. Let's just get it done.
Yeah.
And so I was like, fuck it. Let's just, if we're here to start a band, let's just fucking start a band and start getting our feet wet, you know?
Yeah. And not to throw shade on Berkeley either, because like, you know, beyond you know, our like school experience there, like that sort of community ended up like being very like into us like after, you know, like later on when we were like,
well, it's like the biggest employer,
right.
But
I mean,
like,
it's
not, so it's like, how can you avoid it?
But yeah, I do remember like the moment for me was like every Wednesday there was like a songwriters forum, right? It was like an extracurricular thing. We met our friend like Annie through that because she ran that, And
Who ended up like managing us for a while.
right,
you
right,
know?
right.
So it's like,
But it was like,
it's not like we didn't get anything from it, like, you know.
right, right, right. But what I was gonna say, like, the nice thing about the songwriters forum, like, basically the structure was like you come in and you present a song and you play it, and then the group kind of like comments on it.
Critiques, yeah.
Right, right. And that was like a really good like exercise for me and Jen to like really like basically we had to like write a song every week, right? Like we really honed that. And
well, and what we would do is like we'd actually kind of like write 2 songs every week and then pick the best one to show.
Right.
So it like really got us like, just kind of getting through like all the bad songs, like get through all those early, like, I still am figuring out how to write songs, and like, you get through all of that real early on.
Yeah. And so basically like, as the weeks kind of went on, there was kind of like this, you could pick up this thing of like, here's another Jen and Henry song. And it was, and they were good, and people seemed kind of annoyed by that, and I just remember thinking like, well, all I really want to do is like write songs, and we already kind of know how to do that. So like, why are we just kind of pumping quarters, and like building up debt into this thing that we already like know how to do, you know what I mean? So that was kind of like, I don't know. I think it was like the genesis.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were just like, we'll show up to the ensemble class because other people's grades depend on us being there, and then we just skipped every last final. So like the report card was like F F F A F,
Where did you guys live when you moved to Boston?
We were in the Fenway, so like right on like Beacon and Park, like the corner.
Really?
Right, Brookline. Yeah. That we lived there for like a year,
about a year and a half. Yeah.
Like
and then where?
Then we moved to Alston.
Yeah, we were in Alston for a while.
With all the other bands.
The other bands, yeah.
That was like a magical time to be in Alston too. Like we were there for like six years in Alston, but we were like right by Great Scott, so like it was like
walking distance to everything, you know, like it was the right moment to be there. And then we moved to like Quincy, where we were gonna like, we moved in with like our drummer Ross, and this is before we were like this is like before we did like some big tours, and so, like we were like touring, but but like the longer ones, and like I remember like we were like, okay, we're gonna save a bunch of money like moving into this 2-bedroom, and like it was just so much cheaper. I think we paid like $350 a month in rent. I
was surprised. Just move. There's so much to talk about with you guys. I was really surprised when I was looking at your discography that Leave Your Light On didn't come out till 2006, because I was like, didn't they have music out before then? I knew you guys had a demo that was around, but but you guys
like we had like 2 demos. Like those were the ones that I remember we were handing those out at like the Abbey and stuff, but we recorded we did an EP in 2004, and that was kind of like the first real, that was like when we got Ross drumming in the band, and he was
like the first like steady lineup.
Right. But
was that a CD, or why do I remember that? That's weird. I didn't have that on my list.
I think it was like a black and white photo of us on the cover.
I actually remember. It's fine you don't remember because it was so long ago, but I do remember like running into you downtown like in 2004, just after we had like released that.
Oh wow.
Like it was just like a random, like we were like on the Silver Line or something like that, and we were like, oh shit, it's Steve, hey. And like we were like, we just recorded this, here you go, man, like we sound good now.
Okay, now you make me sound like an idiot.
No.
I'm sorry I didn't remember that. The first record I remember, but I didn't remember the EP. I don't know why. Well, you have a lot of I'm looking at the list.
There's so much.
I mean,
I barely remember like 3 weeks ago, so no, it's nothing.
We just finished making number 6, and then there's a bunch of like EPs and singles in between everything. So it's like,
I remember you went to Dayville, I think it was near Putnam, Connecticut, or something to record that record. I do remember that, and it was with Hugh Wyman. And that was like your first full-length album.
Right.
Yeah, that was an experience. It was. I mean, I look back on it fondly, but it was just like a funny way to like.
It's just like, it's like anything else with life. There's a plan, and then
until there isn't,
and then everything goes to shit. It's like we were supposed to do it all live. Then they basically Hugh cleared a lot of stuff with everybody at that studio, which was really just some guy's basement. Yeah. And and then it was not to be. We were supposed to be able to record live. That didn't happen because we couldn't make that sound good in there. We were supposed to stay over the night at his place. he did not tell his fiance anything about that, whom he shared the house with, so that didn't
Yeah,
happen.
she was very upset.
It was just one thing after the other. They were supposed to have all these compressors that that they mentioned that I wasn't there, etc. Blah blah.
Yeah.
So we would like go there on weekends. We'd like work through the whole week and then go there on the weekend, stay at some motel down the street,
Yeah.
and then come in and record. And then I would have to go into work early Sunday morning. So I would drive back Saturday, go to work Sunday, and then after work, drive to Connecticut, keep recording, then come back and then start the whole week over again.
Yeah. That was
how did you find this guy, Hugh?
So Hugh, he used to play in I don't know if you remember Baby Strange.
Oh yeah, was he in? Oh, that.
He was the original.
He's the original guitar player in that band.
Yeah.
Okay, now I know who he is. Yes.
Yeah, we played some random show with them in Fitchburg at this place, the Compound, which I think was like a converted like car dealership.
I remember the place.
And it was like one of the, like with people like, like some people like within like 10 seconds, like this is like a friend for life. And that was like with Hugh and Chris in that band. And we played the show together, and it was this kind of thing where like we were like, oh, these people are awesome. We just started hanging out more.
Yeah. Obviously, we all lived in Alston, so
right? We
all like a stone's throw from each other.
Yeah, he lived like super close by. We'd like go to the common ground like every weekend and just get like blasted.
We'd see each other at like the Pill or the Plant like every week. You know what I mean?
And so then. Yeah,
and
so
then he started they kind of he took us under his wing a little bit. It'd be like he'd show up and be like, "I've got you tuners.
Yeah, you
should have tuners on stage."
You idiots. But yeah, so like I think there was like a split with Baby Strange where like him and Chris and Jay like they were no longer in the group, and he kind of needed he had like time to fill, and like he was just like, you know what, like I'm getting into recording, like I'm going to produce you, and I'm going to like pay for the record. He basically took care of everything, and like he did like pre-production, like he drilled us like for like a month, and I think it was like just sort of echoes of like, because Tom Polche did their record, so he was kind of using
that process with us, like putting us through that, like coming to rehearsal and doing all that stuff, and then also was like, write some new songs for this as well. It's like you've got all these tunes, write like 4 news tracks and get that on there.
Yeah.
And like I mean, he's just been a buddy. I mean, we're still super good friends with that guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Where's his kids like goddaughter? It's like I don't know. He's great. Like I love that guy.
And you guys went to New York to record Fan the Fury in 2008.
Right.
Well, what made you go to New York to do it?
Well, he sort of came to us, this guy. Like we had
Chuck
played
Brody.
Yeah.
Brody.
I think he goes by his name like Caleb Shreve now, but I think at the time it was Chuck Brody. He did he was like a Sony mix engineer guy.
Well, you saw us at a gig. We were like, we already had all these new songs, and we were looking to we checked out a couple studios. I think so Annie, who we mentioned at the Songwriters Forum, was living in New York. She was managing us at the time, and she like had a couple New York options. I think that I forget.
He saw us at like Luna Lounge.
No, I'm saying we might have like gone to a couple places in Boston to check out too.
Yeah. I know we went to Serious Business for like a minute to check them out, but
that's in New York.
Yeah.
Caleb was at a show we played at the Luna Lounge in Brooklyn, which was like funny reading about it now, because like if you read Meet Me in the Bathroom, that venue pops up like all over at the same time. So he saw us at a gig there, and I think he like Annie and him got talking. He was like, I want to record this band. Why don't you come to my studio and check it out and whatever else. So when we were checking out studios in New York that weekend, whenever we went to his place, and I don't know, it just seemed like, okay, this is a cool place. I think we can do it with him. We seem to be on the same page. And we ended up, making the record with him there.
And the like I do remember like the pre-production for that one too. Like that was there was like a moment in the band where like there was some like tension with like Roy, and like he had like quit the band and then he came back, so there's like a lot of like patching up stuff.
I think it was like right before we were gonna go and record.
Right.
I remember Roy.
Yeah.
You guys had a few lineup changes, that happens,
Yeah.
You do this long and it's like impossible.
Right. But I remember after we patched things up, like we spent like a month like in our drummer Ross's like basement, just like recording demos and stuff. And I do remember that being a very lovely like together, thing. We're just like hammering out these songs and stuff. And then that's kind of,
Yeah.
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 It all really started to come together with you with the next record, Exile, because I know you guys ended up going on tour for like real tours and stuff. And I
Yeah.
know you played CMJ, South by Southwest. And I was reading the song Counterfeit Star is like a theme song. I didn't even know that. I found that
Oh, yeah.
somewhere, I think on a Wikipedia or something. Thank God for Wikipedia.
Yeah, right.
And but I know that you I mean, I have that record on vinyl. So it's a great record. And it seemed like the whole, is that when you feel like everything just came together for you as a band?
Yeah, I think that record, like, certainly for me and Jen, and like figuring out what this like band means like to us, because like I think after like during while we were like promoting Fan the Fury and going on tour, like Roy ended up like not being in the band anymore, and then like Ross
Like a few months after
a
that.
few months after that stepped away.
So it was, that was kind of like a really like our first sort of like, that's the first time I ever really experienced any adult anxiety, it was like, okay, half my fucking band is gone.
Right.
Like, what am I fucking doing with my life? What is going on? Is this all just fucking exploded in my lap, And we just did what we always do. And we just used it to make more music. And we made a really different record. It was a very like, we wanted to make a record that you throw on like really late in the evening to like kind of chill out and get moody, and it was just like, it was like nothing else we've made. And I don't think we could have made that with the band. That was as a result of like, it's just me and Henry working out songs together, and then working with Dan Daskovich, who's a producer on that, was like really influential on those tracks, I would say. Like
that was like the three of us, like really like
like we'd show him the thing, and then he'd kind of like make some suggestions. We might play around with it with him, and and as we went on, it got more collaborative and that sort of thing. But like he was just like those songs wouldn't have sounded the way they did in the end without his input. And that was the first time that a producer had that sort of influence on it, which was cool for us. And it was just nice for it to be the three of us tight knit as being the recording unit. And then having people come in, and like we had our friends, like at that point we had met Charles, who'd done some tours with us, so he came and played bass on Counterfeit Star, and like we'd have like our friends come in, play horns on this, so that come in and do this and that, and like a lot of like guest stuff with that. So it was definitely a new way for us to record. We were recording only on weekends, like when we had free time, and like so it took a lot to come together.
Yeah, I remember it took, from when we started, it took like a year, and then we finished mixing it July of 2010, and then Jeff mastered it, and then it was out like September, October. It was just like, it was so like
Jeff Lipton.
Jeff, yeah. So he mastered Fan the Fury for us, and that's how we met him.
Yeah. He's like regarded as one of the best mastering guys around.
Oh, he's a lovely guy.
Didn't he get nominated for a Grammy or something?
I think he did. Yeah,
sure, multiple ones. Yeah, I mean, he's just been doing our new record that hasn't come out yet. He's a great guy.
With all due respect to Dan and everything, I think you really, when you get to the Benny Grotto part of your career, all of a sudden things go to another level. Because I think Benny Grotto is fantastic, and you guys have worked with him a lot, so you know that. So how did Benny? I guess it was around 2014. It's got to be me. How did you guys hook up with Benny? Because he's regarded now as one of the best engineers, and I think personally, he's probably is the best.
Amazing ear. He's got an amazing ear. He's a very good friend. I mean, it was just like it was so good. Taking it back to the Berkeley thing,
right?
Something else we got out of them. So at some point, we got approached by some department in Berkeley that were doing like a documentary on the songwriting process. Basically, it was us and some other bands and artists, and they would follow us from writing a song until all the way up until recording it. So when we got to the recording part, we'd already known who Benny was. Benny had already worked with like Baby Strange, friends of ours, and like he recorded a bunch of folks by then. And I loved the sound that was coming out of that studio. And we just couldn't, we just, it was always difficult for us to pay for studios. So it was
was it Matt? Was it already Mad Oak at that time?
Mad Oak still, totally.
Yeah, it was the original
location by Rug Road and all that.
Yeah.
And like Berkeley was like, well, just tell us where you want to record it, and they'll foot the bill. So it's like, sweet, this is when we're gonna go try out Mad Oak and go, get Benny to do it. So we went in and did the track with him, and like it was just, it was so immediate that we were already just like we've been friends. For
like he was like kind of throwing stuff at us, and we were like, all right, and then we were giving each other shit, and
I mean, it was just
great.
Like personality wise, it was just there from the beginning, and then just like the attitude in the studio of just like, well, what if we did this? Like, we're kind of this band that's like, well, like let's try anything. Like you won't know whether it works until you try it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll go back to the other thing.
Yeah. Well, I just want to like throw this like quick story into about Benny, which is like he told us like a couple years after we started working together that this had happened. But there was like Mad Oak used to do like they would basically put on shows in the like occasionally at Mad Oak, and there was this band that we were friends with that was doing that, and I won't put words in Benny's mouth because like it was just like a rough night for him because of the personalities involved. So he was already like not in a great mood. And after the show's over, we're all like kind of hanging out, like in the Mad Oak kitchen. And I remember at the time, this would have been like late 2009. We were like on the cover of like Performer magazine, and one of the interns, was like idly just like drawing like a mustache like on my face, and I was like right behind him, and I thought like, well, this is funny. Let me fuck with this guy a little bit, And I'm like whispering in his ear, it's like, no, you're doing the mustache wrong. You gotta, I was trying to grow something out at the time too. So it's like, you gotta, like, it's a little patchy here. And he looks at me and he's just like mortified, he's like, oh, fuck. But Benny kind of saw this from a distance, and he's already in a bad mood. And he's just like, look at these fucking divas. Like, they're just messing with the, like,
my intern shit.
Yeah. Like he thought I was like serious, So like, when we walked into the studio, like, like a couple years later, he was already like prepared for us being like just huge jackasses, which we were, just not in that way. So I thought you guys were going to be the biggest assholes.
That's so funny.
So, it's funny that you mentioned, being on the cover of Performer, because things really started happening with you guys in town and stuff. And then it was only a few years after that you decided to leave and go to California. And how did you make that decision to leave Boston and move to LA? Was it totally for the music business angle, or
not totally?
Not totally.
I think it was just a general, like, we toured out here a few times, and like we had a bunch of friends out here, and I've been to a bunch of places that I like really like to be in, that were like fun gigs and fun cities. But like, I couldn't really see myself living in any of them except maybe LA. LA kind of seemed like, all right, I kind of know this from, living in Miami, this whole driving around sprawly sort of thing, and the palm trees and everything. But it's still like a city with lots of, cultural resources and things like this, the way that I'm used to in Boston, And I thought, okay, I guess if I had to live somewhere else, I could live in LA. And that was just in the back of my mind. And we get back to Boston, plod along with these records and stuff, made a few. And just at some point, it just kind of felt like things were changing, where for us anyway, like, we're getting older, and like, I'm just getting sick of some of the slog. And
it just felt like we're kind of like in a holding
pattern.
Like venues are closing, and like things are just getting
tough. It was kind of like the beginning of that. And it was just kind of like, and then I'm sitting there fucking digging my car out 5 o'clock in the morning to make it to work on time. Some shitty job, some job that like, it wasn't shitty, but I didn't want to go to it, and it sucked. And like, I just kind of like, what, like, why am I still here? Like, all my friends now have had babies, and I barely see them anymore. I don't have any family up here that I'm seeing, you know what I'm saying? So like, I could just like go somewhere else. There's nothing stopping me from living somewhere else. And it just, between the grind of that, and like, honestly, at that point, like the like constant like overcast shit and all of that is just messing with my mind. Like, I just got a bunch of like, this is what I, again, talking about experiencing more of that adult like depression, anxiety shit.
Mm-hmm.
That just started to flower, in full bloom at that point. And I was just like, I need every edge I can get to fight that off, And it seemed like a clean break, and like going to a place where I, wasn't going to be like totally alien. Like, I've been there before. I knew people there. I wasn't going to deal with this weather that, like, this was after that horrible snow we had in 2015, where it was just fucking every week there was a storm and all that shit. And that was the one that broke me. And I was just like, Henry, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm moving to LA.
Yeah, and apparently Charles had like the exact same thought, and I had the same, like, just independent of one another.
Independent of all of us, nobody said anything, and they were like, "Well, I actually been thinking about that too." I was like, "Great, so let's just do that in a year."
Okay, so I'm sorry. So I spent like 14 years out in LA, and then I went back for another year, and I was just there in May, and I'm not like some of these other Boston people where LA sucks. I fucking love LA. Okay, where do you guys live in LA?
We're on Beechwood.
So it's Beechwood Canyon is the name of the neighborhood. It's in Hollywood.
Beechwood?
Yeah.
Below the Hollywood sign?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
It was like a needle in the haystack. We were looking for apartments.
How did you get?
Pure luck. It's rent stabilized and it was affordable. And we were like, this is nonsense. That we pulled onto the street and we're like, there's no fucking way.
I was like, you sure you have the right neighborhood?
And
this looks a little too nice.
But man, like I'll say this, like when we lived in Boston, like the 16 years, we basically moved like 7 or 8 times.
Yeah.
This is the only apartment here we've been in, and we've been here for like almost 6 years. So like that, like stability is like,
wow. I used to work at Sunset in La Brea, but I had friends that lived on Beechwood. It's funny that you lived there. I know that street because the Hollywood sign's right at the top of the hill, right?
There,
yeah. I don't even like see it anymore. Like I walk outside, I'm just like, But it's a cool. I like the neighborhood, and like we always go down to like Franklin, like Birds and La Poubelle and all that, like But
well,
yeah.
You did move to LA, but you did go back to Boston and record with Benny Grotto again.
So we finished that. So the Sprezzatura, the record
2020, yeah.
2020,
we finished that before we left.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
We did, yeah. I think we did the last few sessions for that, in the months just before. I think we left April 2017. I think the last session was February.
Is that why you did the EP? Because that was more current, the Dead.
We did some. Yeah, that EP was like a mix of stuff. Like it was like a couple of things from that, and then a couple of things we did here.
Yeah, so the thing was, we finished that record, and we had a manager at the time who was like, the idea was he was going to, we were gonna all right, let's try and shop this, maybe get somebody to put this out, and then we moved. And it's so there's all of that happening. He's not quite doing that. So we're just sitting on this fucking record for a couple of years. It was done in 2017. Look at it. Didn't come out till it's fucking 2020. That's crazy.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, totally crazy.
Yeah. This is where the timeline starts to get murky with.
Yeah. So then what happens is we move here. We basically the band comes together fairly quickly. We meet Chris and then get the ladies playing horns with us. And by the end of that, we had we had some songs left over that we'd written at the end of Boston, our time there that hadn't gotten recorded, just stuff after we'd made Sprezzatura. And we were like, well, let's record some of this with the new band and see how that goes and stuff. So we put out a couple singles while we were here, and then put that all together as the City Lights EP. So that actually came out first, even though we recorded it after Sprezzatura, because we wanted to kind of we also wanted to we didn't want to put out the record here and then basically not have people know us and come to the show, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
we just wanted to get our feet wet a little bit here in the scene, and we used those tracks to do that and build the shows bigger and bigger. And that was we were doing a pretty good job of that just before the pandemic. It was we had a couple single release shows and this and that, and then we were all right, cool, now it's time to put out the record. And then all this shit happened. And
I've been on your mailing list, so I've been following along with all this. You guys have been definitely active. I just got confused about the timeline, but I have to ask you about the horns and the strings, because I remember when I first heard that, I was like, wow, these guys
we've always wanted to make. Yeah.
You guys really took it to the next level.
Yeah, that record definitely it's very special because that was our sort of Boston swan song, and we playing with Chuck, our drummer at the time, that was phenomenal. It was just great. So that was Aloud with a budget.
Was that Chuck Ferrera?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Chuck was on my show. He's a good guy. I like
Oh,
him. We talked
I miss that guy.
Great guy, excellent
Yeah.
drummer. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm I'm like Chris, like super awesome drummer. I love the guy. But it is a bummer that like even beyond playing with Chuck like that, it's difficult to hang out with him now because he's such a wonderful like person and like just funny as shit too, and
He's in a million bands now.
yeah,
so
yeah.
You'd have
He
to
was, like-
share. You'd have to share him with like several other bands.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I remember for like a period too, he basically became like Matt Oak's like unofficial session drummer, like between us and like whoever, everyone else was playing. But yeah, we did that with like Chuck, and that was like a thing where like let's just like kind of throw everything we've got at this.
I think it was basically like, again, you make record after record, and like sometimes you're like, well, we'll do this on the next one, or we'll do this, blah, blah, blah. We'll get to it because we don't have the money now. Maybe if we had a budget, maybe this and that. And it's like, at some point, it's just like, all of these songs could really do. I'm hearing all these arrangements, all these things. And it's like, let's just do it. Whatever the fuck it costs, it doesn't matter, because we'll want to do this before we're dead.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just want to know that we did it and it's in our catalog and prove that we can do it.
Yeah.
And that's just what we did. So we wrote the tunes, arranged them all in the space with everything. We made sure we were like, listen, there's gonna be horns on this. Don't fill this up with a bunch of guitar. Leave some space. Like, that sort
And
of thing.
this is Benny you're talking to, right? So you kind of converted.
Well, this is actually just the four of us in the band at this point, because Benny didn't do any pre-production on this one. But when we got into the studio, he was there.
And you turned him into George Martin, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
Because
But,
Benny can do a lot of heavy stuff, and I can't. And when I hear the horns and the strings and all that, I'm like, interesting. There was a song, "Waiting Scenes from a Lonely Planet."
yeah.
Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Love that song, dude.
Thank you.
Love it. Ironically, as it sounds from going through your whole career, and I know there's a lot of good things here, that I listened to a lot. I listened to that Dead Reckoning a lot. And those songs, I wrote a few down: "Alone in the Dark," "Tokyo," "Valentine." I love those songs, man. It's like really good. And then I guess the Comeback Kid's probably the most recent thing you guys have done.
Right. Yeah, I feel like, so that Dead Reckoning was sort of like, again, like songs that were kind of like
B-sides, right? Or something.
Yeah,
Basically,
essentially,
yeah.
It's like some of the, like Tokyo was actually part of this Presatura session, but we were like, it sounds so fucking different. Like we'll do something else with this later.
Kind of heavier sounding.
Way heavier. Yeah. And like a lot of that EP is like darker, more experimental. And like we kind of, we do that in between albums to kind of be like, where do we want to go, with the next one? And I think that's what we were doing going into the next one. It's like more effects, more like stranger sounds, a darker sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like the first one we did like as a full record with Jago drumming, which he is so good.
You guys have kind of followed the path of the Beatles more than you realize you have.
Yeah, to the point where Jago he is actually from Liverpool, so it's like we're slowly becoming which is funny. So he grew up, his childhood home was like across the street from Ringo's childhood home.
Wow.
So, like,
that is so cool.
Yeah.
Right. And well, he says that like, when we got through like making the record and listening to the masters and stuff, he's like, wow, I just realized this whole record is my love letter to Ringo. Cause he's like, I've put in all these like Ringo-isms into this track that he hadn't really done before. Like
Ringo-isms.
Yeah. And I was like, you can hear it, man. It's fucking cool. And it's just like, it is like all these things about Aloud sort of converging, in there. And
I like when you guys get heavy. I do.
Yeah.
This next one's definitely
I think it's certainly in that direction. It is it's a heavier record.
Darker,
It's darker.
Because you've always been like a pop band to me, and now it seems like you're getting a little heavier, and I like it. That's what I mean with the Beatles reference, like on Abbey Road, they got some heavier songs, "I Want You" and stuff like that.
Right.
Totally. Yeah, I think the earlier stuff there was like, especially when we were doing a lot more with vocal harmonies, that tends to kind of pretty things up a bit more, and I think with this one, I mean, again, we wrote it during fucking lockdown, the darkest fucking time. Not that like that doesn't necessarily mean all the lyrics are really dark or anything, but like it does mean like the feel and the vibe and everything is very like almost urgent, you know what I mean? And yeah, you'll definitely find. I mean, I'm thinking about
Like Origin of the Hourglass.
yeah, which is like, I mean, that's there's even a drop D on that one, you know. Like,
So this is the new record you're talking about.
Right,
now.
right, right, right. Yeah, that comeback hit is on
Apollo 6 is the name of the new record.
Yeah.
What is the name of it?
Apollo 6.
Apollo 6. And when is that coming out?
I think like spring. We're
It's
still kind of
spring of this year. We can just say it.
All right, yeah,
It's
May.
May.
Yeah.
It's gonna be out in May. Yeah.
May. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Wow.
So we've got like another single coming out on the 27th of January, the second single, and then we'll do a couple more leading up to the release.
So you guys like LA?
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
you know,
man. I mean,
yeah.
I do miss like the only thing I miss about or don't love about LA is like I don't get the walking element as much as like, I like that's why I left Miami, because I wanted to like live in a city where like I could walk out the door and get to where I needed to go, or
Yeah.
quickly hop on a train or something. But like apart from that, and like you get used to like not having that, you know what I mean? But apart from that, it's great. Yeah.
I lived mostly in I lived at the beach a lot when I lived in LA. I was in Marina
right
del
on.
Rey, Redondo, and then I
Yeah.
lived in Studio City for a long time and Encino. So it was the valley and the beach. I never lived in the area you guys live in, but I worked when I worked at A&M, it was right there, Sunset and La Brea. I mean, you could walk around that neighborhood. It was just
Yeah, there definitely are neighborhoods where you can just kind of plop your car and walk around to wherever you need to get to.
yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And like even here, it's not like it's it's like a 12-minute walk to Franklin, but we're up a hill, so coming back up the hill.
You guys go to the beach a lot?
Not too
We
long.
really
I mean,
should.
we go like a couple times like in the summer, that sort of thing.
I stayed down there, Manhattan Beach in Hermosa, when I was there in May. That's where the punk rock started down there in Hermosa.
Yeah.
What's
Circle
the venue
down there? The Rock or something, right? Or the Saint Rock is the venue down there?
There was a church. I don't know the names of the venues now, but the church was the place in Hermosa where Black Flag and all those bands first started. Which, if you go to Hermosa Beach, you'd be like, "This is where punk rock started." It's not. It doesn't make any sense.
What do you have to be angry about?
So before I let you guys go, I want to ask you about, are you guys listening to a lot of new music these days? And how do you listen? Do you have record player? Do you listen to the streaming? I ask everyone this question because I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean we do vinyl for the most part.
At home we basically
I'll do like I'm a huge fan of like Bandcamp and like actually like owning music.
Me too.
I still put it on my phone. I don't stream anything on my phone. I just like buy the digital whatever and just put it on my phone and listen to that in the car. You know what I mean? I just don't. I can't be bothered, man. And like it's too much fucking choice. Like I don't know. I don't really like it. I just want to like. I'm still very much an album person.
Me too. Yeah.
So I just want to like. I'll be like, I'm in the mood to listen to this album, and I'll pick that and do that. You know.
Yeah.
Do you guys go to any record stores out there?
We were just at Amoeba yesterday.
The record store.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where like
let me tell you, it was fucking busy on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things like everything is kind of like dropping off, but like Amoeba's still busy as all hell.
I can't imagine how LA people would be under quarantine and shit. I try to imagine what that would be like in LA, and I just imagine a whole group of people just saying "fuck that," because I mean, in Boston it was like a ghost town, but LA.
It was weird.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was like weird. There was no traffic. I'll tell you something.
That was great.
I could get like, so Charles is in View Park, like closer to the airport down down that way. And like it'll take us like 45 minutes to get there normally. It took us like 20 minutes.
Wow. Did you go down La Cienega Boulevard?
Yeah, take that all the way down Crenshaw, and like it's just like we were there in a heartbeat. Actually, we could take the highway most of the way because we didn't have to take the streets. The streets is usually when the highway's all clogged up. So it was just wonderful. So
people were actually being good about it then.
They were. They were being pretty good about it. I mean, I don't remember. I don't remember any incidents or anything.
Not really. Yeah. I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the early on, like when we went outside to like go for just to get out of the apartment, it was just like you could hear like nature reclaiming. There was like
Yeah.
more crows than usual. It was just like dead
It's very quiet.
silent, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a good time for the animals, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
yeah. They were having a ball. They were like,
was.
but yeah,
I
as far
got a
as, like,
little off the track, man. I'm sorry. I asked you about new music.
oh yeah, yes, but the crows. Yeah. No, yeah, Wet Leg. We just bought that record. Like it's such a great record. Our friends band Child Seat, they're fantastic. Living they're a great
Yeah.
band. I've been listening to a lot of stuff.
Are you in touch with any of the Boston bands still?
Yeah, we still like talk to Chuck a lot. You know, like his band Double Love, like they just put out a record, you know, so I talk to them a lot.
Yeah. And then Hugh, of course.
Then Hugh,
everyone-
yeah, we
he
talk to him all
plays
the time.
he plays in Old Jack now, you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. They've been around for a little while.
Yeah, they're our one and only label mates.
Chuck's in a big super group here, the Shanghai Lows, you know? They're
Yeah,
like-
Oh,
they
okay.
just put something out too, right? Like
yeah, they did. And everyone in that band
Yeah.
comes from a really great band, you know? I mean, it's a really good lineup. Chuck's a really cool guy. I enjoyed talking to him. I
yeah.
didn't know him very well, but we got to know each other.
Yeah,
Nice.
no, he's a sweetheart. It was funny when he was like firmly in the band. I had to like look up an email, like it was like notes about like some production thing or something like that. So like I don't organize anything in my email. I just like search, and I searched for Chuck Ferreira, and I found like an email from him from like 2010 or like way before I met him. I'm like, what the hell is this? And it was him responding to like a Craigslist ad for us for a drummer, and we just never wrote him.
Wow.
So I was just like, oh man, this is like a great opportunity to just fuck with him, you know. And it's like, please, I apologize for the tardiness of my reply, sir. We no longer need your services. You know, I forget what I wrote, but it was just like, this is an ass, you know. And he's just like, fuck you, Bagugu times.
Well, hey, you know, you guys are cool, and you know, I love the fact that you're sticking with it, man. You just grinding.
It's a calling.
You
know?
keep
Yeah.
doing it, man, and people notice you, you know, and so many bands give up, but not you guys, man. You guys are like staying on it.
It's
Yeah.
like breathing, man.
We're
You just can't stop.
we're too stubborn to quit. It's more. This is like I'll show you. Like,
I mean, I forget who I was talking to about you recently, and they said, and we were saying, yeah, they were like kids when we met them, and it's true because you were, you know, you were so young,
Yeah.
and now 20
Yeah.
years you've been doing it. So good for you, man.
and, yeah, and listen, you know, thanks for, you know, I mean, this is great talking to you too. Just you know, mostly because it's fun, but like also like, you know, a few people were like around like at the sort of beginning, you know, and like you know, and just like for booking us at the Abbey too, right? Because like we were just unable to get gigs anywhere, and that was just like such a great like, dude, put us through the paces, and like we played, you know, like we were, you know,
We just
I don't
learned
know.
a lot.
It was an education,
Just
you know what I
learning,
mean?
yeah.
I loved hanging out with you guys. You guys were always there hanging out on those Tuesday night acoustic shows I used to put on.
Tuesdays.
Right?
You guys were always there. I remember seeing you every week, you know, the
Yeah.
good
It's,
old days. And that place, I don't know what the hell it is now, but it's not a rock club anymore.
Yeah, that's I think it's Trina's. It's like a restaurant now, which it's good food, you know. But those are the days, man.
Hey, thanks a lot, you guys, for taking the time to talk to me.
Of course, anytime.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You know, this is awesome.
Good luck.
Cheers.
Cheers, man.
All right.